Hello, Vipin sir. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Kalyani. Thank you so much for having me over. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, are you done with your today's running routine?
Yeah, I got it done in the morning. I used to be an evening runner who a constant procrastinator, but now I'm learning to sort of get it done in the morning itself.
So, do you think evening runners are procrastinators? Because sometimes I feel that evening runners are more dedicated because after the long day of work in college, they're still running. So, what's your take on that?
I don't know. I have always been like until about a couple of months ago, I have done all my runs. I've done maybe over 20-30,000 kilometers so far, and all of them have been at night. इनफैक्ट मैं अभी रात की स्टोरीज देखता हूँ ना आई शेयर द स्टोरीज आई वुड हैव शेयर्ड ऑन सोशल मीडिया प्लेटफॉर्म्स आई सीन माय मेमोरीज आई एम स्टार्टिंग अ 30 kilometer run at 9:30 in the night. I mean, I can't imagine that now because once you start running in the morning, it's actually much healthier. Like your
Hmm.
body is much sync with the circadian rhythms are much better. Like where you get some exposure to the sun early in the day, and that resets all your hormones. They reset in a way that they should be. And if you run late at night, your sleep gets a little disturbed. Then you wake up late and underslept and all of that. So it's much healthier, better to get it done. Having said that, you should get your run or your workout done whenever you can. There's no perfect time. पहले तो if you make a habit of running, then you can improve it. Like you can't improve the habits that you don't have.
That's true. That's true. So, any habit to build it, it takes take dedicated effort and significant amount of investment of time, right? So,
Yeah.
take us through your journey into running.
Yeah, running happened accidentally to me. I started running initially to lose weight, and I had heard that fat. It's probably a myth. Fat burning begins after about 20 minutes of running. So I was like, okay, so 20 minutes to भागना ही है. 20 के बाद I was imagining fat burning has begun, so I would run more as much as I could after 20 minutes. I carried on. That's how I started running longer, but I never had a watch or any of these apps. So I used to run by, just looking at the watch, saying 8 बजे जा रहा हूँ run करने तो 8:30 तक पौने 9 तक 9 बजे तक वापस आ जाऊंगा. So I used to think that way, and but that's the maximum amount of running I had done. I once saw a bus passing on the road somewhere, and bus had a big hoarding sort of thing on it. Had marathon written all over it. I was like, dude, ये marathon क्या होता है? So I came back home and I googled it and looked it up because I was thinking marathon run maybe I can do. I don't know what the distance is. भाग तो मैं भी लेता हूँ. So I thought I'll go and run one. But when I checked it, it was 42 kilometers and I was taken back. I was like, dude, ये तो मतलब बहुत ज़्यादा हो गया. I thought मुझे लगा था कि ठीक है 15-16 होगा 20 किलोमीटर होगा. That's as far as I could think. But when I saw 42, I was like, dude, ये तो impossible है. But then it took me a day, and then I was like, but attempt करने में क्या जा रहा है? Let's get into this. So I signed up for that race, and I learned that there is a medal that you get on finish line. So I really wanted to finish because I really wanted the medal. So I signed up for a half marathon because I was in my head I was sure कि half तो मैं कर ही लूँगा 21 तो मैं कर ही लूँगा मरते गिरते पड़ते. But I wanted to run a full, so I ran a full marathon. But I had signed up for a 21K. But how I finished that 42 kilometers was uh, a sad story. Like it was extremely painful. Yeah,
So, like, how many months did you prepare for your first race? Like,
I did
yeah.
not a week or so before the race started, and I just
Wow.
registered up, and yeah, I mean, it hurt. It hurt
Yeah.
a lot. Not I would recommend this to anybody. It's just the wrong way of getting into running. Um, I also paid the price. Like after finishing the race, although it's a great story though. Like when I finished, how I finished that 42 is a story, but it's a story in itself. Maybe for another day. But when I finished that 42 kilometers, it changed my life forever. I paid the price. I had a hairline fracture, and I just developed a very hateful relationship with running. So I did not run a single event uh, for 2 years after that. People would ask me, "You've run a marathon. When are you running the next one?" I was like, "Dude, जिंदगी में और भी काम है. यही नहीं करना है मुझे." So I did not run any event for 2 years. Yeah, so 2013 was the first event when I ran my first 42. Not official because I
Hmm.
had signed up for one. Uh, and then I did not run anything for 2 years. And then after that gap, I probably got bored of life or something. But oh no, in fact, I came across somebody's post on social media. I saw this guy running 100 kilometers. I saw a picture of him running 100 kilometers somewhere in Ladakh region, and just that picture inspired me so much. I was like, dude, what does it take to run 100 kilometers? So yeah, and it was snowing and it was freezing, and that guy looked to be in some pain. I was like, dude, whatever it is, it's an adventure. I was like, ye to attempt karna hai. I want to do this once. So just like the marathon, I had the craze of getting it done once. Ke ek bar karke, you have the bragging rights for the rest of your life that you're a marathoner. Similarly, for 100K, I was like, dude, if I can do 100K once in my life, I can brag about it for the rest of my life. Like 100 kilometers, who can imagine running that? People get tired driving 100 kilometers. So I signed up for it. No, not signed up for it. So that just inspired me, and I signed up for a series of events over a. I made it. I took it, made a target. I made a promise to myself. Okay, within a year, I
Hmm.
want to run 100 kilometers. So I signed up for a few races, some 10Ks, 20Ks, and all of that. And within a year, I did complete my first 100 kilometers as well. So I ran the 100K, and after that, I ran multiple ultras. I probably would have done close to 30 or maybe more ultra marathon races. So marathon is 42 kilometers. Ultra
Yeah.
marathon is anything longer than 42 kilometers. It could be
Yeah.
100. So after that, I've done 100-mile races, and I've also done a 200 kilometer.
Yeah.
But I've
So all
done.
of this thing, like when you were running for your first 100K, you were preparing for it in installments, like you were running higher distance incrementally. So were you working with a plan, or you were training yourself, or were you working with a group or a coach, something like that?
So when I ran my first 50K, or the first 70K actually, it was a race in Mashobra, Shimla. Uh,
Hmm.
and if you are ever going to ask me about my toughest race, that was it till date. So it was a 70-kilometer race in Shimla. I had signed up for it. So before this, I had never trained for anything. I used to just show up and just willpower my way through all these races. So I thought ये भी हो जाएगा, but ये पहाड़ों में थी, and
Hmm.
mountains are not like they can be brutal. So you
Yeah.
can't just show in guys, those who never see hill. दिल्ली में तो हल्का सा फ्लाईओवर पे हम थोड़ा सा भाग लेते तो लगता है कि हिल ट्रेनिंग कर ली है हमने. But so I showed up for this race, and it had a crazy amount of elevation, some 5,600 meters in total, I think over 70 kilometers. Massive. It That race really broke me, and it broke me emotionally also, because what happened was I had taken my parents
Hmm.
along for, and this was the first time they had come. So they would have thought, ठीक है भाई, लड़का हमारा भागता है, जाके देखते हैं क्या करता है, कैसे करता है. And then here I was, trying to do my first 70-kilometer race and they're waiting at the finish line. But I was broken by 30 odd kilometers, and the elevation would just not. So it goes down, and then it goes really up, and then goes down, and that it was crazy. I was broken at 30, 40 kilometers, and one of my knees started hurting so bad. And in,
Oh.
in, in, in an ultra marathon, you go through many phases. So in one of my talks, in one of my storytelling sessions, I talk about this in detail. But your body and your mind go through different phases. You become first, the physical pain makes its presence felt. Everything begins to hurt after 23 kilometers. Everything begins to hurt. You start getting thought, then your mind plays tricks. Mind tells you that you're going to get injured, you're about to go on a foreign trip, वो खराब हो जाएगा, promotion आने वाला. Why do you want to risk all of it? Just quit today. Today is not your day. Go back home, come back another day. That's what your mind starts telling you, and you are almost convinced कि भाई logical argument दे रहा है दिमाग, सही बोल रहा है, today is not my day, I will quit today and I will come back. So you're getting all these thoughts in your head. But if you continue, if you do not give up despite all of this, that's when you enter a phase where you suddenly uh, discover more power, more energy. Like there are reserves of energy within us which we don't tap into because we don't. get to that stage जहाँ पे वो uncover करने की जरूरत पड़े. Like David Goggins, the ex-Navy SEAL says, right? He says, when we think we are completely done, we are only 40% of the way there.
40% done. Yeah.
We have so much more left in us. So वही हुआ 30-40 kilometers के बाद I was about to give up, but I did not, because I was only imagining my parents being there at the finish line and they are waiting. And it was very hard. Like I wanted to give up, but I just continued for them. And I knew at one point I knew that I will not make the cutoff because there's a cutoff time within
Yeah.
which you will
Have
the
to finish
race.
the race. Yeah.
And it was clear to me that I will not make the cutoff. And then the van comes and takes people who are not finishing. So the van had come, and I was like, "नहीं अंधेरा हो जाए, जल्दी हो जाए. I have to finish this. I have to finish this on my feet." So I finished that race, hobbling for 70 kilometers, and it was still the toughest race. That was a race that broke me down. I thought this. I'm just unnecessarily putting myself in these situations where I don't belong. Maybe I should just stick to the 10 kilometers or half marathons or something. Um, but then my 100K was still not done. I was like, okay, एक बार 100 तो करना ही है. So I signed up for another 100K, and it was in a couple of months. And it was after this failure that I became a lot more determined and serious about my training. I figured out what stages had to be run. What does it take to run that 100 kilometers? So I figured that out. I learned through the internet and through some friends, and also during that race I met a lot of people who became good. I became good friends with, and they guided me, and that led to my first 100 kilometers a couple of months later, which I also just barely finished. I still wasn't a good runner, but I did finish. Yeah, barely.
But today you're an accomplished runner. You've run 100K multiple times. You have reached better goals in life, and you've also touched 200K. And you're doing
Yeah,
awesome, basically. Yeah.
I'm I feel I'm a much better runner, and also over the last 1.5 year, my game has improved a lot, and that has happened with discipline. So since the beginning of 2022, I've been doing a 5 kilometer streak every day. So I haven't
Oh,
missed a single running. I've been running 5 kilometers every single day, but that's a bare minimum threshold. In the last year, I ran over 3,800 kilometers, which is averages around I think 11 or 12 kilometers per day. And yeah, and I haven't missed a single day yet. Yeah.
that's great. I think, like you mentioned, during your 100K race or the race before that, the willpower was something that was taking you through. And whatever stories I've heard about, endurance athletes, runners or climbers, people who go on like expeditions to these large mountains, mental training is a big part of their life, because they know that even though you run out of physical strength, your mental strength can take you through these difficult situations. So, how much do you agree with that? And do you do something to make yourself mentally stronger every day?
Yeah, I 100% agree. It is so. I wouldn't say people say that it's 50% mental and 50% physical, and some people say it's 80% mental and 20% physical. I don't agree with all of that. I think the reality is it is 100% physical and it is 100% mental. Like you have to go all in completely on both aspects. Like if you, no matter how strong you are physically, you can't run 100 miles. You can't just run 100 miles out of whim. You can't get up tomorrow and say 30 घंटे तक मैं रनिंग कर लूंगा. नहीं होता है वो. It just does not happen. You have to train for it. It is physical as well. Yeah, you might get away with a half marathon. You can,
Hmm.
drag your way even a marathon, even a 50K. But longer distances, you have to train. And mental game definitely has to be strong. So when you, so race day is actually just a, reenactment of what you've done in training. So and I realized this over time. जब ट्रेनिंग में you're feeling like giving up. Let's say you're going for a 30 kilometers run today, a training run, and you did not feel the best, and you're like, dude, let's do only 10 today and come back. uh, that's not good training for the mind, because when the race day comes, that's exactly what you're going to do. You're going to listen to the mind and you're going to succumb. So you
Hmm.
have to every day that you don't feel like training is actually the day you must go out and train, because that's good training for the mind. So this year I'm doing, to my in addition to my 5 kilometer streak, this
Mhm.
year I'm also doing a half marathon every week. That's also a streak I'm doing. So the day is not fixed. I give myself the flexibility to run it on any day of the week. Um, and like and then there are tough weeks, like the last week, entire week I was traveling with family, and I struggled to get my 5 kilometers done every single day. So a couple of nights ago, I was in Panchkula, and I ended up starting my 5 kilometer run at 11:30 or 11:20 in the night, um, in the dark, in a place where place that I'm
Yeah,
not familiar. Before that, I did a couple of them in Una, the Ganari village where we were staying, and it gets dark pretty soon in the village, right? And the village is quiet, and village is asleep very soon. And I
yeah.
started my 10:30. So it was a challenge. And even when I came back, I had come back driving 1,500 kilometers in the last week. I was extremely tired. And it was very difficult for me to do my Sunday 21-kilometer run that I had to do. But I had no choice. I've committed to this process. I had to do that 21K. And I dreaded it like crazy. I did not want to do it. I was questioning myself. I was questioning why I'm doing this. I was questioning क्या ही हो जाएगा if I don't do this, all of that. But I told myself that जितना मुश्किल करना लग रहा है ना, उतना ही ज्यादा मेंटल ट्रेनिंग के लिए फायदा है, उतना ही
Mm.
ज्यादा स्ट्रांग बनाएगा आपको. इट विल मेक यू, सो द मोर डिफिकल्ट थिंग्स दैट यू डू, द स्ट्रांगर you become. So when I beat resistance and got it done, it made me stronger. Like, I had much more confidence. uh, yeah, that's so I think mental training is of paramount importance, and we
So
must do
mental
the mental.
fitness everyday runs, like it must be taking toll on your body. So how do you recover? Because every day you're putting in that effort, right? And then
Yeah,
the half marathon also on the weekend. So
that's a, that's a myth that people have about running streaks. People think injury ho jayegi, rest or recovery important. 100% agree, rest and recovery are important. But if I'm going out there and pushing myself for distances and for speeds that my body is not able to take, then of course I will get injured and I will pay the price. But it's number one, I have gotten to this place where I can run 5 kilometers every day after about 10 years of running. So my body is well accustomed to this. So it's not like I just started running and I'm doing this now. Number two, I pace these out differently. So not every run is at the same pace. I only do one or two speed workouts. 80% of my training is slow runs, and that's how they're
yeah,
supposed. And on certain days when I'm not able to, when a body is extremely tired, let's say I ran last month, I ran a 50 kilometers ultra marathon. After that, the next day my body was very tired and I did not want to risk it, so I did a 5 kilometer walk. I just have to cover the distance and
mm.
my recovery. So I, on the bad days or on the no training days, it is a walk. So I respect my body and I respect the recovery process.
And I think recovery or rest, all these things are very personal, it cannot, there's no one rule for everybody, right? For these
Oh,
things.
that's true. Although it is important for everyone, it's just that different people recover differently. Lots of friends of mine who are elite athletes, who are playing for India. Couple of couple of those guys are crazy. Like, their recovery is insane. They can run back to back really fast for many days, and yeah, I mean everybody has a different body.
Yeah, right. So if we were to like list out certain rules, if someone just starting out and running as a beginner, uh, what mistakes should they avoid? From your experience, what can you suggest? Like, how should you start into running?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, I mean it is for me a sport. It's not. It's not a. It's not a one-time goal, or the focus has now moved towards making this a lifestyle. I want to be able to do. I just love this sport so much. I want to be able to do it for the rest of my. So when I initially started running, uh, there was this gap. I ran my first marathon, then didn't run anything. Then I started running again until my 100K. So वो वाला जो phase था when I ran my 100K, around that time I was really obsessed with it. I wanted to do bigger and bigger races really quickly. But now I've matured a lot as a runner, and I feel I want to do this for the rest of my life. I think that's a great approach for everybody to have. Don't
Hmm.
just think in when you're starting out running, don't think in terms of what you can achieve in the next 6 months or 1 year. Think where you can be in the next 10 years, 20 years. And imagine yourself like I'm imagining myself doing this when I'm 90 years old. Like I want to be doing ultra marathons in my 80s and 90s. There are people who are crushing it in their 90s and 80s. I recently met Milind Soman's mother, who's 83.
Yeah,
Doing our last long run, she ran 40 kilometers in okay well, over 2 days, but 40 kilometers at the age of 83. So that just redefines what aging is for me. So I'm 30 years old now. I want to be able to do this as long as I can. Like I want to be a healthy old age person. Now, as far as tips for others are concerned, if you're beginning running, I would say the biggest mistake is running fast,
hmm,
because when you start after so many after a gap of so many years, so let's say in the beginning in school days we're all active, right? We're playing different sports and we're active. Right after we get out of school, we get into college. Some people play sports and some don't. So जो खेलते हैं वो तो अच्छा है, but जो नहीं खेलते हैं, they become sedentary, then they get into a job and they become sedentary for like 10 years or until they are 30, and then they wake
hmm,
up again, then they pick up an activity. When you're picking up an activity after a gap of so many years, your body, your cardiovascular capacity, your heart adapts pretty quickly. So your heart will start to respond very soon. But smaller muscles and tendons and your ligaments and joints, all of those need to be trained over time. They will take time to adapt. So when you start running, you will be able to run faster, and you will feel good running faster. You'll feel like an animal. You want to go out there and do something. But that's why you have to control the urge, and you have to train like an athlete, which is you train 80% of the time, you train nice and slow, and 20% of the time you push yourself really hard. So make your slow runs really slow, and fast runs really fast.
okay. So if someone's beginning running, should they get too much into the numbers? Should they focus a lot on like timings and what is your average speed, what's your elevation? Should they focus on these things or should they just have the
Can
feel of,
be
you know?
these things can be motivating. Like if you have targets of running at a certain pace, meeting a certain timing, all of these can be motivators. And I wouldn't rule those out completely कि छोड़ ही दो सिर्फ run by feel, वो नहीं होता है. But and also community plays a big role. Like if you get into a running group, there are people who are, so community plays a massive role, because once you have somebody who cares about what you've done out there, so it's a it is a solitary activity, right? You're on the road by yourself. Some people run in groups, but I'm a solo runner,
Hmm.
and even in races, you're mostly running by yourself. Sometimes you have a companion, a friend you're running it with, but mostly it is you who's pulling out the inner energy that is within you. You're the one struggling. But when you know that you've come back from training and there is a friend who cares what you've done today, what pace did you run at, there is one person or there's two people or there are three people who care about it, or there's a group that wants to know aapne aaj kya kiya, that means a lot, dude. Like, yeah. Because घर में अगर मान लो किसी को इंटरेस्ट नहीं है, तो what will you do? Like you went out there and crushed, like you did your first fastest 25 kilometers today, but who cares? Who cares? जो आप करके आए हो आपकी जिंदगी का बेस्ट एफर्ट था आज का, but who cares? If there is a community, if there are a couple of people who care, they say that happiness is real only when it's shared.
Yeah,
So yeah, you have somebody to share it with. They will ask you about it, and then they will, because you know that they also care. You have an accountability partner, sort of a thing. So it works. So community is extremely important.
yeah. I totally agree with that. Having friends who have similar goals or at least know what you're actually trying to do is very important if you are pushing yourself towards achieving such a great goal or pushing yourself through challenges, you know. And the culture of running in India, it has changed and it has grown
Hmm.
so much in the last few years, I feel. I think recently TMM, the Mumbai Marathon, they had uh, given out the data, like how many entries were there for full marathon a few years ago and today, how much it's increased, and people are coming from different places of India to run these important events, like top 10 events of India, for example. Mumbai or Delhi, important races. So I want to ask you about that. Like you've been involved in the sport yourself. So how has it changed and how is it growing? What is actually changing in India at root level?
It is growing leaps and bounds, like no, and it's evident from the numbers in the marathons. But even if you
Yes.
look at the timings, like when I started doing ultra marathons, there were hardly anybody. There were hardly any people who were doing ultra marathons. Like we were maybe the first, second, or maybe the third or fourth batch of people who were into this, and the records at that time looked big to us, and we were like, okay, but I can one day work hard and achieve this, an average guy like me. But over the last 3 years, 4 years, and 5 years, in the last 2 years especially, the records have just gone through the roof. We are now getting closer to the world level. Like, so I'll give you an example of a 100 kilometer timing. 100 kilometer timing, until a couple of years ago, until about 2019, 2018, it used to be, I think the national record was closer to 10 hours something. It is now 7 hours and 6 minutes.
Oh,
The world is probably six something, so we are getting closer, much closer, in all respects. And also, big credit goes to these marathon events. They are, I think, a great, and signing up. So if also for beginner tips, if you ask me,
hmm.
signing up for is a great start. Like, sign up for your first 5 kilometers or first 10K or first 20K. This is what, this is something I see happening now. Milind Soman's run Pinkathon
Yes.
was run for women. I So many of my aunties, and my female friends used to sign up for it, being so excited about the run. Even my mother loves ADHM. She does a 5K walk, and my father has done a couple of 10Ks. My wife has done a couple of 10Ks and half marathon. So it is, they're now becoming a family sport. So it's one of the activities. Like, पहले परिवार को लेके आप कहाँ जाते हो? Where do you go with family? Like, this is a great thing to do. Like, all of you show up at the start line of a race at 6 in the morning, and you all show up with medals. And this is the age of selfies and Instagram, and you have a cool breakfast after that. It's a great Sunday spent. So no
Yes.
wonder this popularity.
And there are so many family run events also nowadays, you know. Where I
Yeah,
live, Thane, we have a family run. So I know so many people who just so excited to participate every year. They take their kids and taking their parents with them, and it's basically a celebration, you know, of
yeah.
the human strength, I feel. Even if it's a 5K, for you, it might be a greatest thing that you achieved so far. And those happy
Oh,
faces, you know, they are just amazing to watch. Just to be in that environment is like very memorable experience.
yeah, and I totally believe that the because why do you get the medal at the end of a race? Like, people used to think earlier that if everybody gets a medal, then what's the point? Like, oh, why, only the winner feeling bad about that. The winners get a trophy and a maybe a check or whatever as well. But you get a medal for showing up there and doing the best that you can. So your, like, it's what you put into it, right? जितनी training करोगे वो आपकी running में सामने दिख जाएगी आपको, right, when you start playing. And this sends you in a loop. Let's say you ran up your first 5K, let's say in 45 minutes or
Hmm.
something, and you would, next time when you show up, you would want to do it in 44 or 40 or 38, uh, and that sends you on a self improvement loop, and that's what makes it addictive. Well,
True. And I think, you know, as a country, we have been a very, not very fit community. You know, we love our food, we love our parties. So we somewhere compromise as a country on fitness, but I think we are all getting serious now. I think government efforts or even the media exposure, uh, I think especially after the pandemic, you know, I feel that fitness is priority for everyone now, you know. So I think
yeah,
running is the easiest thing to start, I feel, because you don't need any equipment. Like, for example, if you want to play tennis, you need at least a racket, which will be very expensive. But running is the easiest thing, I feel.
it is totally. It
Yeah,
is totally. Although it's not as simple as people think. People think running में क्या ही सीखना है. But I think everything is a skill. Like, even going to the gym, people think weights उठाने हैं उसमें क्या skill है. But I, recently hired a coach to actually learn the skill, because I see everything as a skill. You have
yeah,
to learn the skill, you have to practice the skill, and then you have to master the skill. And that you know, that makes the game exciting. It makes it a game.
True, true. And basically, you're competing with yourself, and I think that's the best kind of competition.
Absolutely. Getting up every day and trying to get better is a good game everybody should play, I think. It's
Yeah.
a life well lived.
So I want to ask you one question. Running as a community is increasing and growing in our country, basically. And you have been like to different races where people like us can only dream of going. So talk to us about the people in our country who are basically performing at these elite levels today. Who should we be looking at if we are starting into running or anything? So who
Yeah.
are the youth icons right now?
Yeah. So it's funny that I happened to found a group called the Sunchasers.
Yes.
Uh, a group of like it's a restricted group. Only selected people are there. You have to apply for it,
Yeah.
and the idea was not to act pricey or anything. The idea was to get people who are serious about the sport and the same vibes. So we have certain values in the Sunchasers. We, like, for example, you have to be willing to crew for somebody. Like, you have to be willing to stay out there all night in the cold, just handing out water bottles to your friend. You have to be willing to do that part of the group. So that way, we had certain values. When ultra running national team started, I think out of, so 9 people were selected. Out of 9 people, 6 were from the Sun Chasers. So it is, so the group that I co-founded, it happens to be the group of most inspiring people out there. uh, so there are, of course, national, great athletes nationally, but I would say the ones I have had a privilege of knowing, like, their journeys. So when I did my toughest 70 kilometers in Mashobra, 4 of people I met there, and these are the guys who've gone on to represent India. So I'll take a couple of names. There is Binay Sa. Binay is an absolute beast. Like, he recently ran in the NDM, the New Delhi Marathon. He ran 2:46 marathon, like 2 hours and 46 minutes for a full marathon. That's brilliant.
Wow.
And he held the national record for 24 hours running. He, I think, ran 230 odd kilometers in 24 hours. So, so Binay is an absolute beast, extremely humble guy. You should look up Binay Sa on Instagram. He's very popular. He's loved by people across the country because of his demeanor. He's like such a humble and sweet guy. You ask him anything for any amount of time, and he'll have plenty of time. There is Hemant Singh Beniwal, who's a super fast runner, sub 3 runner, Boston qualified runner. He's also
Yes.
played for India. There is Suraj Chadda. There is, among the women, there is Apurva Chikara. There is Anju Seni. And yeah, and Meenal Kotak. Meenal is a legendary runner. So you should reach out to these people, and they're wonderful. Kanan Jain. So I just started my podcast a while
Yes.
ago. Kanan was my first guest. Kanan Jain is a story of an average runner becoming an elite runner and representing India. So you should totally check that out and connect with Kanan, because Kanan is posting some great stuff on Instagram as well.
Yeah.
This on the course by 3:45 in the morning every single day, and he's raised his game like anything. So it's people like him that they make me believe that anything is actually achievable. It's not like there are certain people who are of a different breed. If Kanan can do this, anybody can try and work as hard as he can, as he does, and then achieve what he's achieving.
Yeah, definitely. And Kanan's consistency is like incredible. It's actually unbelievable sometimes. For all these years, even during COVID, he was very consistent, like all runners are. But I follow Kanan for like last two years, I think. So, in fact, I was in the course with him. So he had told me a lot of stories of his running, qualifying for India team and his race there also. Like it's incredible. You have to follow these athletes, even if you're not a runner. The level of consistency these human beings are operating at. It's really something aspirational, and everyone has to follow that. I feel.
So you mountaineering course.
Yeah, we were together in the same batch, basic mountaineering course. Yeah. So, since you brought up the topic of your podcast, it's a brilliant show, I think, in running. I follow a few podcasts in running. So, I was really happy to see one Indian voice in Spotify charts. So, what was your motivation behind starting that podcast?
My motivation is simple that first of all, I'm a big consumer of podcasts. I've been listening to podcasts for a very long time. And I don't
What
know
are your
many good
favorite
Indian.
podcast shows? Rich Roll to
Sorry.
start with. Which are your favorite
Yeah.
podcasts?
So there you go. I do like after Rich Roll, you don't need to look beyond. Rich Roll is just phenomenal. He's so articulate as well. Like
Yes.
his whole is so great, and he just articulates things so well. He's like a monk. He thinks like a monk and he speaks like a monk. He's great. So he's a great one to try and emulate. Uh, a lot of people don't like Joe Rogan because people think he's controversial, but I love the guy. Lex Friedman,
Yeah.
um, yeah, and Peter. So I am also deeply interested in the subject of nutrition. I'm also a certified nutrition coach. So I
Yeah.
like Dr. Peter Pratia, Andrew Huberman,
Yeah.
um, yeah, and Lane Norton and quite a few. So but my idea was I because I love these conversations, and these are like matlab wahan pe to they do conversations which are 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours longer, like 4 hour long podcast. So and I love listening to them. So I think, and I love doing long form conversations. So I think if I like that so much, I'm pretty sure there are other people who do. And the popularity of Rich Roll and Huberman and all these guys shows me that there is an audience for long form content. Um, and I was like, why can't we do that in India? I'm pretty sure there are experts in India who there are people who are inspiring in India, and we just need to have conversations with them. So I am looking for inspiration. I'm
Hmm.
looking for personal growth and development all the time. So I wanted to provide a platform. Now, I've just started, and I don't know jack shit. I'm learning as I go, and I'm going to. Of course, the quality of conversation is going to get better as we go, and everything, even the guests. I think the Indian market is also very new in the podcasting scene. Not many people are used to speaking on podcasts as well. So मुझे
Hmm.
लगता है कि create great content through that. Like even in my podcast numbers, when I see that the data, I see that half of the audience drops. So my episodes are long. They are 1 hour 20 minutes, 1 hour
Yeah.
30 minutes type.
I
So
think
half of the
your podcasts are meant for your long runs, you know. You should always put in the headphones, go for your long run, and sign
correct,
into your channel.
absolutely,
Yeah.
while doing something exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, audience drops by 10 to 12 minute mark,
Hmm.
but whoever past 12 minutes does not leave the podcast till the last second. So which is really it's encouraging. Yeah. So that my impetus for starting the podcast is to speak to some people and learn from them. And yeah, so it is satisfying my own curiosities. It is helping me become a better individual, and I want to provide that to people, to the people that I care. My
Right. And one cool thing about you is you've been associated with Milind Soman and his team for last 5 to 6 years, and you run these longer runs together, right?
Yeah,
Over 2 days. So can you tell us about that? And I want to ask you about his mother because she inspires me so much. Like
yeah,
I
yeah.
remember one video, I think even Prime Minister of India spoke about it. In one video she was doing push-ups and that became like viral overnight and that was so crazy. So what is she doing? I love her so much. And tell us about the whole family, basically.
Uh, we do this thing called last long run of the year. So we end the year. There are different ways to end the year, right? A lot of people party and get drunk and wake up hangover and all of that, which is something we've done for the longest time. But over the last few, like 6 years, I think we've discovered this new way of celebrating the new year, welcoming the new year. So we start a run on the 30th of December.
Hmm.
Uh, so we choose a destination. It's always a destination run, a point to point run. We've run from Una to Dharamshala, 120 kilometers. Then we've run Colombo to Unawatuna in Sri Lanka. Then we ran from Mount Fuji, Tokyo to Mount Fuji in 2019. The following year, we ran from Guwahati to Cherrapunji, then Lathi to Salmon Rajasthan, and most recently, we ran from Dharamshala to Dalhousie, Himachal. Right?
Himachal.
Uh,
Yeah.
the run over 2 days. We run 60 kilometers on day one and 60 kilometers on day two, and we on 31st. So we end the run on 31st evening, which is the New Year's Eve every year. And yeah, it's a great way to celebrate. I think there's something to it. There's something about finishing the year with a long run, because none of these runs are easy. Like, they're always challenging. Tokyo to Mount Fuji was very challenging. Every time it is. In Sri Lanka, it was very hot and humid. In Cherrapunji also, it was pretty cold and uphill. In Himachal also, it was all uphill. So when you do something so challenging, and it's the end of the year, you're breaking your body up. During the run, you had a chance to reflect upon everything that has happened in the year, and everything that you want to change in the new year. All the conversations that you want to have with yourself, you have a chance to do that. And there is some magic that happens when you do this during a long run. There's some magic that happens. I don't know what that is. Your thinking is just so much better when you're doing those reflections, rather than sitting inside a room and just thinking. So you're in a beautiful place. You're breaking your body up completely. You have a battered body, blisters, tired legs, and everything. And that's when you're reflecting upon everything that's happened in the year and the year that's about to come. So it's a beautiful concept. And then we end the year, and then we celebrate the new year. This is what the last long run is all about. It's only 7-8 people who do it every year. It's almost like a family. We've been doing this together. Um, we've all seen each other grow over the years. We're getting older. We're all getting older together. We're getting all the grays together. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. And yeah, Millen's mother you were asking about. So I had recently had about a good chance to spend 3-4 days with her recently. The entire family, Milind Soman's sisters and Milind Soman himself and his mother. Yeah. So I mean, I've been meeting Milind for a while. Milind and Ankita.
Yeah,
Ankita
it's
is
also great
amazing.
runner. Yeah,
She is an amazing person as well.
yeah.
I will look to have her on my podcast soon whenever she can find. But Ankita is phenomenal. Um, it was the first time that I met his sisters and his mother. His sisters as well. They're all close to 60, like late 50s, and some like three sisters. I think one of them is in 60. Uh, and they are all so fit. One of them ran 40 odd kilometers on day one and something on day two. Like, they're all so fit. They're constantly hiking, not running all the time,
Hmm.
but non-stop they're running the distance, or walking the distance. They're on the move. Unbelievably fit. Like, at the end of it, you couldn't even tell that they were tired. Uh, a mother, like Millen's mother, um, is the most inspiring of all. At 83, she was doing treks. I asked her, she's done Everest Base Camp.
Yes.
She's done, and she and she said, Kilimanjaro is a walk in the park. She said, you can do it. Like, anybody can do it. I was like, okay. She's saying, I'm sure.
For those who don't
But,
know,
and
Kilimanjaro is the highest peak in Africa, so tallest peak
yeah,
in Africa. Yeah.
and I asked her, how do you do this? And she said, it's just mind over body. You just have to think that you can do it, and you can do it. She lives a very simple life, no frills. She just does household work. And Ankita was telling me that, she still till date loves to do everything by herself. Like, Ankita would run to her and stop her from lifting heavy things and heavy buckets and whatnot. But she'll say, hey, get away, let me do this myself. So she loves everything herself. सो शी इज द ग्रेटेस्ट आई थिंक उनसे मिलके मेरा एज को लेके जो परसेप्शन था वो बदल गया काफी आई एम थिंकिंग अबाउट लॉन्जेविटी आई एम थिंकिंग अबाउट हेल्थ स्पैन आई थिंक डूड like my mother is now 57 or something, and she's I mean her awareness about health is improving, and I'm sure with as I work harder on her, her health will improve, and she her habits will improve. But if you look at the people around you, a bulk of the people that we see today, mostly females, our mothers and our aunts and everybody, they are not looking after themselves, right? They are just not. They're the last. Like, their health is the last thing that they think about. They think about their family, they think about their children, their husband, everybody else, but they ignore themselves. My hope is that over the next few years, as people like me, people like you, we communicate more. I'm also looking to make podcasts in Hindi. We can inspire these people to start looking after themselves. Because look at it like this: you're 60 and you think you're old, And let's say you don't die. Okay, if you die at 60, 65,
Mm.
all right, like game over, right? If you don't, if you live till let's say 83, 85, that's 25 years that remain. So if your health is not good for the last 20 years of your life, 20 to 25 years of your life, imagine how long that is. 20 years is a very long time to live a very unhealthy life, or a life in which you're not mobile, you're not able to do things that you want to, you're bedridden or you're sick or you're ill, and you need people to look after you. That's a miserable 20 years, right? And
Yes.
all you take with you is how you, like, जो ending याद रहती है हर एक की, और 20 साल तक मिजरेबल आप रहे, तो यार क्या लाइफ जी है आपने फिर, है ना? So I that's what I think it is very important to treat those 20 years like, it's not, it's not 60 and 20. I think it's 50-50. So half of your life is till 60, till where you're able to do whatever you want to, but the last 20 years is actually the 50%, other 50% of your life, I feel it, in terms of importance of your physical capabilities.
I totally agree with that. And whatever I have observed or general perception is that, oh, do the job, and by the time you're 45, 50, हमने तो जिंदगी जी ली है, we've done our dues to the family or to the society, after investing so many years, now we're just gonna rest, because very tired. We are tired basically. But I think, we should look at these things, aging as an opportunity, you know, to basically live up to
Yeah.
the potential that we're born with, which we forget sometimes. And I think,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Sorry to cut you there. I have a 1.5-year-old daughter, so it's
yeah,
all the more important for me and my wife to be healthy, age healthily, so that we are there. Like when she's 20 years, I will probably be close to 60, and that's the time she probably needs somebody to be there to just maybe able to ask. So, of course, she's going to be independent when she's that age, but it's a huge difference whether she has someone like a father who she's able to call and just ask about something. If she doesn't have her parents who are either healthy, or they're, let's say, they're dead, then
mm,
she's on, and she's going to miss us, right? And I think it's important to, I mean, that my daughter gives me all the more reason to live a healthier life, healthier, like a life that is full of health rather than sickness.
yeah, I think that was very important. And thank you for sharing that. And um, on that point, let me just take a turn to the running part of it. You know, so I observed that you are experimenting with running also. Like a couple of years back, I think during the pandemic, you also learned swimming to run a particular race, and I think you're also not using traditional shoes anymore. You moved to the Luna sandals route. So can you talk to us about that? Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, so
yeah,
I'll tell you about both separately. I think first, let's talk
yeah,
about triathlon. So
yeah,
I was I experimented with triathlon. I want to do an Ironman. Ironman still inspires me. It's a triathlon that happens, and I still want to do it at some point. It's just that Ironman requires a lot of commitment in terms of discipline. It requires a lot of time from your away from your family because you have to pursue three
yes,
disciplines.
yes,
So I was really crazy about this in 2019 or something, and I signed up for an Ironman in 2020. It was going to happen in Spain, Ironman Vitoria.
yeah,
So I started for it, and yeah, and then pandemic happened, so the race got postponed. Uh, so then we had nothing to do, and but I was still hopeful that I will be able to do it at some point. COVID will go away in 1 month. It'll away in 2 months or three. We all kept thinking like that, but it never went away for a year, for a couple of years. The race got postponed. So Ironman decided to do these virtual races, in which we all could participate for free. So
mm,
I for a half Iron distance, and because they knew that the swimming pools are not full, they made us do like a 21-kilometer run, followed by 90-kilometer ride, and followed by 5-kilometer run. So that's what we had to do. And because we couldn't go out, we couldn't even go out on the street, right in front of my house. We were not allowed because there were police out there.
yeah,
So I ran 21K on my rooftop, on my terrace. It was, I think, a 19 or 20 meter terrace. and I ran around in circles, and it was miserable. Like it was very. I think I even got blisters running that 21 kilometers on the
Yeah.
terrace. Yeah, and then I came back down to my floor and I cycled for 90 kilometers. I think it was my fast because I was in my head I was doing an event. It was my fastest 90-kilometer ride. And then to do the remaining 5K, I did not have access to the terrace again because my landlord saw me doing that, and some for some reason he was not happy with it.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, I locked it, and it was I was angry, but I had no choice but to do the remaining 5 kilometers in the balcony. So can you
Oh my
imagine,
God.
like, a balcony? You're doing 5 kilometers. It was so frustrating. Like I from the balcony, you can see the road, like the street. And you're feeling so frustrated. You're like, मुझे वहां जाने दो. I'll wrap this up in like 23, 22 minutes. Um, but you're not allowed to. You have to do this in balcony. It probably takes you closer to 2 hours to do in a balcony. Um, because the GPS signal also messes up when you're doing very small circles.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So that was it. I think, and I think the Hindu and a couple of newspapers picked up that
Yeah.
story and yeah, published it. Yeah.
I did read that article about you. Yeah.
Oh, you.
Yeah.
Huh.
So basically, we all went crazy during the quarantine, so to speak, lockdown. And this is the quarantine Pro Max, I think, running in the balcony 5K. It must be very challenging. I can't even imagine this. Like,
It was, and it was madness, and it's not the healthiest thing to do. It
yeah,
is madness. We were all getting mad, right? We outlets चाहिए था सबको ना कुछ तो लोग पागलों की तरह चीजें कर रहे थे, and मैं भी कर रहा था. So I was just,
but I think this story will go in your autobiography one day.
yeah.
So tell me about your future goals now. Iron Man, we definitely spoke about it. So what else are you trying to achieve in the next few years?
Yeah, and you also asked a question about
Yeah, about
Luna sandals.
yes,
I'll
yes,
answer that. So basically, Luna sandals, I transitioned to barefoot a few years ago, but I'm not a completely barefoot runner. I do run in shoes as well, uh, because I think the transition also should be like a transition. Like you have to
mm,
just should not switch to barefoot completely immediately, especially if you're racing in between, like because if you're racing you have to run faster, and when you transition to barefoot or minimalistic footwear you should be running slow for a very long time. Like if you ask Milind, he said it took him a
yes,
couple of first half marathon in barefoot. So he took his own sweet time because the legs were adapting, new muscles were being getting stronger. So that there are benefits to this. There are immense benefits to this. Barefoot running is great. I think it gives you great feedback. For example, just to touch upon this, some people might find this interesting, and some people might
yes,
wonder why does Milind run barefoot, or why do a lot of people run barefoot. Some people think कि show off है किसी तरह का. You maybe you're trying to show that you're sacrificing something, but it is not. You're running barefoot because it has benefits, and the benefits are these. It corrects your form. So when you're landing, when you're running and you're landing, bulk of the people are landing on their heels, right?
mm,
That
yes,
puts stress on your knees. Uh, Now shoe companies realized that this was something that was happening. People were hurting their knees by running in this manner. What they did was cushion लगा देते हैं पीछे, right? They put cushion at the back of the heel. So now when you heel strike, cushion absorbs the shock and it does not hurt your knees. But it's
yes.
not the right one. Like you should be doing a midfoot strike. Heel strike is not good for you.
And once you get
Or
used to the cushioning wala shoes, it's very hard to come back to a regular shoe or. Yeah, you
correct.
get used to it a lot. Yeah.
Some people find this controversial. Some people say that there are elites also who are doing heel strike and doing really well. करते होंगे मुझे नहीं पता. Health point of view से मुझे नहीं पता. मुझे लगता है कि midfoot strike जरूरी है. If you look at Kipchoge or all these elite athletes, they don't have heel strike. They have
Yes,
a
yes.
beautiful midfoot strike. If you watch in slow motion, all these pictures, you'll see them flying, but their foot is just landing just right on the midfoot. So that the moment you transition to barefoot, couple of things happen. One, every time you heel strike, you get the feedback, like you feel it till here, you feel it properly, which with the shoe you do not feel it. So you
Yes.
automatically minimize that, and you try and fix the landing. You take your strides get better. You take shorter strides to make sure that you land on your midfoot rather than overstriding, overreaching, and then doing a heel strike. Then another thing that happens is, so coaches kept telling me you should do soft landing, and I was like, "कैसे होती है soft landing यार?" And I could not see the point of it. But when you start running barefoot, you feel every single thing on the road. So जो छोटे कंकर पत्थर होते हैं, you want to avoid them. You want to make sure that you're not landing too harsh on them. So your landing becomes very soft, which is how it should. It should be soft, and it should be, you should be gliding rather than doing, striking dhar 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 on the tarmac. Yeah. So the barefoot running has numerous benefits. It's just that easy to transition to.
Mm-hmm.
It is easy, but and it is simple. It's just that it takes time. Everything that's of valued actually takes time. So you should just be patient with it and stick to it. And maybe you could do a few runs barefoot in a week. Few runs in Luna sandals. Luna sandals are also great.
Yeah.
They're minimalistic, and then you can do some runs in your shoes as well. So while you're transitioning, it just makes a gradual transition. So you're asking about the goals. Should I answer the next question as well?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So the goals have changed over the years. Earlier, when I did my first 100 miles, I looked at all the meccas, like all the uh, मतलब जो सबसे बड़े मुकाम होते हैं कौन कौन से हैं रनिंग में, वो करने हैं those races that are dream races for every ultra runner, like the Badwater race that happens in Death Valley, California, like there is the Spartathlon that happens.
Yes.
There are quite a few races. So I initially wanted to do that within the next 2 years, within the next whatever. Earlier I had those timelines, but now I don't. Now I want to play the long game. I'm in no rush to do my bad waters. I'm in no rush to do my Spartathlon. Although I have my goals, my first big. So you have to start where you are. I had these dreams to do these big races, but I was not even a consistent runner.
Hmm.
Like I would used to be like 15 kilometer आज कर लिया, and then nothing for 4 days, and then I would run 20 kilometers and then nothing for 5 days. So it used to be very inconsistent, and which is not good because consistency is everything. So my first goal was to develop consistency. Now this 5K streak and now a half marathon every week, I have become consistent. In this year, I want to build upon that and consolidate that, take that a level higher and I'm doing that by adding a half marathon a week. So I'm going to stay in the game. I have a couple of races coming up this year. Last year at Border Ultra, that happens in Jaisalmer,
Yeah.
Jaisalmer to Longewara,
Yes.
100-kilometer race. I was a DNF at that time. So the irony was in 2022, I was at my fittest and my best running form, but that was the first time I failed to complete a race. Like the Border 100, I was a DNF. I did not finish this distance. I gave up at 30 kilometers. And the reason was simple. I had developed viral fever 3 days before the race,
Oh.
and it was just so it hurt a lot. That failure stayed with me for a very long time. Although I'm now learning to sort of move on from things faster. So I'm learning to forgive myself for the mistakes at least that I've not made. So this year I'll be going back and completing that race. That's an unfinished business for me. But in about a year, even if it takes 2 years, I don't care. I want to do the Spartathlon. I want to run the 246 kilometers race in Greece. Sparta. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So so far, only 4 Indians have done it. I
Yes.
know a lot of friends of training for it. They are doing great. They would probably so more Indians will do it this year. I am not doing it this year for sure. I am aiming for the next year. But even if a lot of people do it this year, it'll still be a very small elite group of people who would have done it. So I have my eyes on that. I would love to do that.
Awesome. And on behalf of our audience and everyone, all the best. I hope you and many other Indian runners who put in so much dedicated work every day, achieve everything and just increase the, standard for all of us, basically. but how to live a life and how to basically stay consistent and stay motivated and basically be a better version of yourself, right? That's what we're all trying
Yeah,
to do every day in our own way. Yeah,
that is correct.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for
Me,
joining us, and sharing so
my
much
pleasure.
information. Yeah, great talking to
Yeah.
you.
It was wonderful talking to you. I love the conversation.
Yeah, and I request everyone to check out Vipin Sir's podcast on Spotify. It's Spotify exclusive, or you are also on YouTube now?
So not YouTube, but I'm on all the audio platforms. So it's on Apple Podcasts, it's on Spotify, Geo7,
Hmm.
Ghana. All yeah. It's called Find Your Ultra.
Yes.
So you, and yeah,
And it's a great podcast. Like, I've been a listener since it launched and I've not missed a single episode. I loved it. And Kanan's episode is my favorite so far. So because he's my friend. So again, it's a biased
yeah.
opinion. But yeah, it's definitely a great show and everyone has to check it out. Yeah.
It is, and also we'll. I mean, I plan to introduce. In fact, we've already recorded episodes with some. So it's going to be a diverse podcast. It's not just going to be about running. It's going to be about personal growth of all kinds. I've also got some great episodes lined up on mental health,
Hmm.
uh, and yeah, and strength training and muscle building. So it's going to be a diverse range of
Yeah, I think you also
topics.
did an
That we,
episode on nutrition, which was also very intriguing. Yeah.
yeah.
So it's a great podcast. Please check it out and follow Vipin sir on Instagram to learn about his journey and what more interesting things he's going to achieve in the next few years. You have to be witness to that.
Yeah, let's hope so. And I want to thank you, Kalyani, for inviting me for doing this. I am truly honored. You've been doing some great work. I've listened to the other podcasts that you have. I want to get those guests on my podcast as well. They're great people, and I think you're a great host. I think you get the
Thank you.
best
Thank you so
answer.
much.
Thank,
Thank you. All right.
cheers. Thank you.
Sign off
All
now.
right.
Thank you. Bye.